Colt Express. This is a game that came out a couple of years ago. I remember playing it at Origins when it originally came out. And now the game is out again in a new format that makes it better for two reasons. One, now we have the big box treatment, so you have the base game with the different expansions and a new character that has been introduced specifically here, Silk, there she is. Another reason why the game is even better now is that I can play with my kids. Now they are of an age where we can play this fun, crazy romp of programmed actions in which we are robbing a train and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. My kids right now are 9 and 11, and so you know that you can play this with fairly young players, and they both love it. This has become the Arnaudo trio, which is my kids and I. Mom, from time to time, she joins us, and so we are the Arnaudo quartet, but we're mainly a gaming trio. The Arnaudo trio are desperately in love with this game. It's just a lot more fun now, actually, than when I played it, back in the day with adults. Because, hey, my kids are a lot of fun, usually, and somehow they're even more fun when we play this game. So in this game, players will control. We're going to start by talking about the base game. We'll control different kinds of criminals, and we are robbing the train. We're trying to collect as much loot as possible. We also score points by unloading our Colts on our friendly opponents. And then at the end of the game, the player who is the wealthiest will win the game. So, we have the big box, remember? Hooray! There it is. So we plenty of room to store both the base game and the expansions. The game is played on this modular train. It will always have a locomotive, otherwise that just doesn't make any sense. And then we have a number of wagons that changes with the number of players. Of course, the more players there, the longer the train. These are for the expansion, so don't worry about it right now. A caveat, so we played the game. I played the game with 2 players and with 3 players. Again, mainly my kids and I. Sometimes we played 3 players, 3 bandits. And sometimes we play with the variant in which each player controls 2 bandits. So in that case, we have 6 bandits on the train. So the bandits are the people that's us. And each bandit is represented by a meeple with Colts that goes on the train and a corresponding mat. And I set up here a game for Belle and Django, who are some of our favorite characters. So each character has a mat where you will place your loot that you collect. You also start with a bag of money, which is important because this way it may be stolen from you. And then each player has a deck here representing how many bullets they still have in their gun. When you perform the action of shooting, you will place the card on top of this deck on someone else's action deck. So first it records how much you shot, and as you can see, they go down, and also it will simply pollute, it will weaken the action deck of the opponents. And at the end, the player who shot the most scores 1,000 points or gains $1,000. And then each player has an action deck, which really is the heart of the game. Each player also has a special ability that is hinted at by icons on the mat. Belle, for example, oh, she's so pretty that people don't want to attack her if they have a choice. Django has bullets that push people away. But then again, we are at the heart of the game. So we build the train using different wagons, and they are different. They have different icons, so that will change the type of loot that they take from game to game. We have the Marshal, who in the base game is a non-playing character that is there with a strong box, which is worth a lot of money. And then we start towards the end of the train. We also prepare a round deck. The game lasts 5 rounds, and each round will be defined by one of these cards that then we flip face up, and it will tell us the number of turns that we take, that will be indicated by the number of slots, the type of turns that we take. If there is just an empty slot like this, we'll program our action by placing a card face up in a common deck, If you're in a tunnel, as indicated by that icon, then we play our cards face down, so the opponents don't know which actions we committed to. And there may be other icons that do different things, and then there is an effect that we resolve at the end of the round. So we know as we start the round what's going to happen at the end, that we can prepare accordingly. And then the last round represents the station in which, again, we will program the actions, and there will be an effect to be resolved there. So first we get a sense of how many turns we get this round by drawing that card. Then each player draws 6 cards from their deck, which at the beginning is almost all of your cards. You feel very powerful, but again, as then your deck is weakened, you'll start drawing these useless cards into your hand because people have placed these bullet cards in your deck, and that's annoying. Also, the Marshal will place neutral bullet cards in your deck, and again, that will weaken you. So we start by playing the first turn in player's turn order, and so when it is your turn, you can do one of two things. You can draw 3 cards from your deck in case you don't have the cards that you want, and that's your action for the turn. Or you can place a card face up, and suppose I just did that, and now then Belle goes and she plays this card instead. And now we resolve the next turn. We should place a token there to indicate which turn we're playing. Usually we place a purse there. And now everybody plays, and so suppose that Django decides to do this, and Belle decides to do this, and so on and so forth. So basically we're programming our actions. Oh, so this will be face down, so I don't want to tell Belle what I'm doing. And Belle does the same. So we play until we have programmed the entire deck, and once we have programmed that, we flip it face down, and we start resolving actions. This way, by flipping it, we ensure that the actions that we played earlier, that are at the bottom, will be resolved first. So we resolve the actions in the order in which you place them here. And so if somebody plays this action, they can move. If they are inside the train, like Django is right now, they can move to an adjacent wagon. And so Django, for example, right now goes there. There are also actions that will allow you to get on top of the train, in which case when you play the move action, you can move by up to 3 spaces when you're on top. And so Django moves there. And then Belle had placed here an action that allows her to collect a loot token. So if there is a loot token in their area, she takes it and she places it on her mat. And then we see what happened here. Oh, Django is shooting. When you shoot inside the train, you can shoot into an adjacent wagon, and there is one there. Bam! And that's how Django takes one of his bullets and places on top of Belle's deck. If you're on the roof, then there is infinite range. But there is line of sight, meaning if there are multiple characters, suppose that Tuco is there, and Django is here, and Belle is here, then Django could not fire at Belle because there's Tuco in the way, but Django could fire at Tuco in that example if Django had committed to the shoot action. You cannot shoot people in your area, and so that's again, it's important because you need to figure out where people will be as they program their actions. The Marshal action allows you to move the Marshal. In the base game, you can never be in the same, you can never stay in the same space as the Marshal. If you program your actions and the actions get you to that space, you immediately bounce on top of the roof of the train. The Marshal only stays inside, and you also take a neutral bullet card into your deck. If somebody moves the Marshal and they move it in an area where you are, same thing, then you freak out and boom, you also again jump on top of the train and take a bullet card. And it's kind of, I know, it looks a bit weird and I keep bumping components, but because, there's a camera here in the way, when we play the game, it's not as fiddly to play. I only have one hand also, again, same thing, I cannot put the hand to the camera. There you go. Other actions include, indeed, shooting, include jumping, on top of the roof, or if you're on top of the roof, moving down, punching people. If you're in the same space as an opponent and you play the punching action, then they get pushed by one space and they also drop a loot in the space in which they are if they have one. So these are the general ideas. Move up or down or right or left, move the marshal, shoot, punch people, loot the area. And this is for the base game. You play through all of the rounds until you complete the final round. At the point you collect points from all the loot that you collected. For the bonus, if you are the player or players that unloaded the most bullets, and at the point the wealthiest player wins the game. Now, there are expansions that come with a big box. One expansion is the Stagecoach, which comes with a second lawman, the shotgun guy. Also, horses. In this expansion, the players don't necessarily start from the caboose or from the wagon adjacent to the caboose, but they are riding toward the train, which is totally adorable. And after they ride, so they can ride at any point of the train and then jump from the horse to the train. After they ride, the horses remain, they are public. So anybody can use them. They're not personal anymore. What changes here is the first, again, there are those horses, so we can start in different points of the train. And then we have the Stagecoach, which is a new space that can be looted because the shotgun here also has a nice strong box, so we can try to steal. Inside there are hostages that are represented by cards. So if you reach the inside of the Stagecoach, you can take one of those cards that will give you a bonus, but will also give you a penalty because now you're carrying around, I don't know, maybe an annoying dog or an annoying school teacher for the rest of the game. Once you have a hostage, they stick with you, Stockholm Syndrome, immediate, and you cannot change them or drop them or anything. So you take an advantage, but also there is a disadvantage associated with them. And you can ride to the Stagecoach, you can jump from the Stagecoach. There's a number of ways in which you can get there. Also, this expansion has the flasks that give you a little more flexibility. You can collect them as loot. They have two uses. The first use, you flip it face up to indicate that you had a use of the flask, and the second time you use them, you discard it. And what they do, for example, with this flask here, I can, by using the flask, I can draw cards and play a card in the same turn. Usually I could either draw or play a card. This is the flask here, lets me play 2 turns, basically 2 cards, which can be very powerful at the right time, at the right moment. Another expansion that we have allows you to play the role of the pesky marshal, In this variant, the marshal has a deck of cards, the marshal has a mat, and it's a little more complicated. It's not a lot more, but it's considerably more complicated than the Stagecoach. The marshal does play differently, including the fact that the marshal will win not by collecting loot, why would he, but by completing objectives that are represented by cards that are given to the marshal randomly at the beginning of the game. And so maybe the marshal is trying to capture some of the bandits, is trying not to get punched in the face, not to get shot too much. At the end of the game, you check. If the marshal starts with 5 objectives, if the marshal completed 4, that's it. The marshal wins. It doesn't matter how much the other players looted. If the marshal fails to complete their objectives, then the other player, the bandits, as normal, check the loot, and that determines who wins. Also, when we're playing with the marshal, we got a wagon that represents the jail, because again, the marshal may capture, that's one of the objectives, in which case you go to the jail, but you also have an action which is called the Bright Idea that allows you to escape from there. You can also use the Bright Idea to collect cards that you will place next to the prison and represent prisoners that you free. Punching the marshal in the face, very satisfying, and also allows you to collect a card that will score a lot of points. If again, you get to score points at all. The marshal Amelia loves to be the marshal, and when she's the marshal, she's very difficult to beat because you really have to adjust. You really have to adjust your strategy because if you're just going, oh, I'm gonna collect my loot and let the marshal capture me, no big deal, and then maybe try to punch him in the face. Oh, he captured me. It is a big deal because the marshal completes their objectives and you lose. So this is the general idea of Colt Express, in case you didn't know the game yet, and this is what you find in Colt Express, the big box. Oh, Silk, very variable character, I guess just as smooth, as slippery as Silk, has different abilities that you can choose at the beginning. My favorite one is that when you play with Silk, you can choose to have her move by only 2 spaces on the roof for the train, which is less than other people would do, up to 3, but 2 spaces inside the train, which is very cool and very nice. So this is the general idea about Colt Express Big Box. The game was always fun, the big box is awesome, and now that I'm playing it with people that really enjoy it, really are into it, it just makes the experience so amazing. So maybe this will be colored, this review, these conclusions are colored, not just by the game, but by the people that I played it with. There are people that I love very much. But at the same time, there are the games that I play with my kids and we don't have such a blast. So there still is something that the game brings out, and the kind of synergy, the kind of energy that the game generates, that's still thanks to Colt Express. So the game was always fun. The general idea of a spaghetti western kind of situation, over the top, people jumping around, people climbing, shooting, but no one dies, punching each other in the face, all this cinematic, over the top, yet cartoonish, yet paradoxically family-friendly element was always there. And I think there is a really nice balance here between open programming and the secret programming. I'm not a big fan of games like Robo Rally, where you program a lot, you commit a lot without knowing what other people are doing. I'm not a big fan, I guess, because I just suck at them so horribly, and I just always lose. I have a hard time. Programming war games like Wings of War, I prefer the World War II version, where I commit a little bit, but I get a sense of what you're going to do before I commit next, as opposed to the traditional game World War One, in which you commit with more cards, and again, then I just end up stuck who knows where. I have a hard time with programming games where you need to commit too much. Here is just right, because well, I see that Luis is gonna shoot me, so I'm gonna shoot back, or I'm gonna do something about it. Oh, I see Amelia is moving in, is moving the marshal, then I don't wanna go in the area where the marshal now is. But now we're gonna play around in which a turn when the cards are face down, so I'm trying to figure it out. Oh, if Amelia punches me and I go to that area, I need to take into account that I may not be able to loot, I may not be able to do this or that. In a round, we may have a single blind turn, but that may be enough to throw your best laid plans into the dust of the desert, and they land on a cactus and they cry. And that's what your plans are gonna do. So even though there is a limited secret planning event, a limited secret planning element, is more than enough to spice things up and to make things really fun and crazy and exciting. We started playing the base game and we fell in love with the base game. Then we started adding the expansions one at a time. And when you have them all, and you can do that, the game does become pretty involved. It takes a little bit to set up, sorting through the cards. But again, it's several of us working on that together. And most importantly, at the end, it is just so darn fun when you are running from the marshal and you get greedy and you try to deliver a punch and you get captured instead. Okay, fine, I'm gonna escape, I'm gonna jump on the stagecoach and collect a prisoner, and it's one that doesn't do anything for me. All the stuff is just fun. There is definitely a random element which may be surprising because you're just choosing the cards. But there's also a deck building element. Not exactly. There's a deck unbuilding element because you don't really buy new cards to build your deck, but you can do things to weaken other people's decks. So it's unbuilding the deck of the opponent, and at the same time, it is still about hand management. Okay, now is the time where I can spend an action instead of placing a card in the pile to draw new cards in the hope that I will get the card that lets me do the combo of, picking up a loot and jump on the roof because I know the marshal will come, and so on and so forth. It's a game with a fantastic theme which is implemented so elegantly. And if the elements that are messy in the right way, it gives you the sense of the chaos. It gives you the sense of a movie with plot twists. So even if half of your turn then doesn't go the way you expected it, it does it in a way that somehow it's compelling. It feels like an adventure. It feels like a crazy loud romp. So I'm very happy with Colt Express, not just because it's a new edition, but because I happen to play it in a moment in life where I just happen to live at the same address with two people that love this game so much, and we have been having so much fun. I'm filming this on a Friday night, and my kids already told me that we're gonna spend part of the weekend playing this game just like we did with the previous weekend and several afternoons in the last week. Colt Express, the new favorite, the new favorite game in the Arnaudo trio of players. We just love it. We love it so much, and with the big box, there is so much to love in here.